Hi, hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we have the long-awaited, long-promised review for Never Die by Rob J. Hayes. Now, this is one of the standalone novels in Rob J. Hayes's, I think it's called Mortal Techniques. Yeah, Mortal Techniques series. Now, this is 3 novels that are all standalone, but when you read them together, they feed into each other. What's Never Die about? Never Die is about a group of heroes who are all kind of complex figures, so they might not be wholly heroic, or they might not be, for example, one of the ones you meet right at the beginning is a bandit who has done a lot of regrettable things. Kind of considers himself to be a coward, but he is he's a strong warrior, and he has a specific technique. So all of the characters all have a technique, which is where I assume Mortal Techniques, the title of the series, comes from, the title of the universe. So I read this one on Kindle Unlimited, but around halfway through, I bought the audiobook, and I pretty much listened to the other half of the book on Audible. So I'd really recommend the audiobook. The narrator is brilliant. The voice they do for one of the characters, I Am Gut Chen, so funny. They do like a Yorkshire accent for him, and just genuinely brilliant. Absolutely loved it. All the characters' voices in the audiobook are really distinct, so you know who's speaking by the tone, like the accent and the voice that the narrator is using. So I would say probably the best narrated audiobook that I've listened to. Yeah, I don't think I've listened to a few odds and ends of fantasy audiobooks, and I don't actually think I've had a better experience with any of them. I can struggle with audiobooks, which is why I almost never use them. But during Self-Pub September, I decided to pick up a couple of the books that I wanted to read as Audible books, because I had a lot of credits hanging over, and Never Die was one of them. So I read, as I was saying, probably the first half of the book on Kindle, and then I flipped between using the sync thing that Kindle and Audible have. But I pretty much read the second half on Audible, or listened to the second half whilst doing things like chores and jobs around the house, going for runs, and then also grinding on Starfield, because I've been trying to level up loads of stuff and tidy away all these little rubbish side quests that don't really mean anything, but I wanted to do them. So I was listening to Never Die a lot whilst playing that, and I really enjoyed the experience. I actually tried to carry on and read a different book via Audible whilst playing Starfield once I finished Never Die, and I actually didn't have as good of an experience. So it's probably something I won't really go into. So highly recommend the audiobook. So yeah, what is Never Die about? I started, but I did not finish. So all of these heroes have died, and the reason that the book is called Never Die is because a small boy who appears to be 8 years old, called Ian, who I thought's name was Ein in the until I started listening to the audiobook. So Ian is going around the country of Hosa, and he is resurrecting these dead heroes, and he's then recruiting them to fight for him against the Emperor of 10 Kings, who is the ruler of all of Hosa. So it's a really interesting concept. I saw that Mike's Book Reviews called this Suicide Squad, but actually, because a lot of the characters are quite heroic, they might be kind of flawed heroes, but they are heroic, I would say that this is a lot closer to something like Rogue One. So Rogue One, the Star Wars movie, is my favourite Star Wars movie. But imagine if you had the kind of the crazy crew of Rogue One. They've all got superpowers. So, for example, the main character can I say main character. The first character that you meet is who's named Itami Cho. She can she can express her power through her voice, and she can talk to her sword to set it vibrating with energy, which is really cool. And she can use her sword in different ways, which is revealed later in the book, so I won't talk about that. But the sword also has something kind of interesting going on. Then you have the Emerald Wind, who is the bandit that I talked about earlier. You meet both of these characters right at the beginning, and he has the ability to teleport. So he kind of steps from one place. He kind of describes it as stepping from one place to a distant place, and then he'll leave like a mirage of himself behind, which is really, really cool. It's used incredibly well in the action scenes in the book, of which there are many. The action scenes are so pivotal and important and well written as well, but they're so pivotal and important that a lot of the chapters where an action scene takes place are named. So it will be, for example, the Whispering Blade versus the Emerald Wind, and that will be the name of the chapter. And I thought that was really cool. As they are crossing, Hosa, which is the country which is it's set, they stop off in all of these different and varied locations. So they stop off at a town of monks, and they stop off at a village that is like a village in a forest where a load of martial arts experts live. So and you know they were all these different places that they go, and they also, you know, they meet in some cases they meet people from the heroes' past, from before they were resurrected, and there's something wrong. There's kind of a mystery, not a central mystery, because it's not really the main thrust of the plot. There is a mystery that it carries through the book, and is kind of, there's something wrong with the resurrection. Something is going wrong. Something feels wrong to the characters, and they're kind of trying to work out what it is. And I spent a lot of the book trying to work out what it was, and I was like, oh, okay, so is he this guy? Is he this guy? Is this? Really good. I rated this one 4 stars. I originally, when I was about at that halfway point, I was thinking that maybe this would have been a 3-star read. And the reason that I was leaning towards a 3-star was honestly because I found it quite easy to put down, in the same way that I described Fated by Benedict Jacker as too easy to put down. Never Die was not too easy. I had spent, you know, whole evenings reading, absolutely happy without any distractions, which I couldn't do with Fated. Every time I would finish a few pages, I'd be like, oh, let me do something, let me do that. And I was just not drawn into that story in a way that made me want to keep reading. Never Die had really nice, short, sharp chapters, but the chapters often, in many cases, feel like an end point. So whilst there are some which are like a continuation of a fight, for example, from a previous chapter, in which you do want to barrel straight through into that, a lot of the chapters, many chapters will kind of end a scene, and it'll feel quite definitive. And they often, when the book picks up, it might not be the same day, for example. And I found that easy to put down. That is a very weird problem to have with the book, and like I said, it's something that's quite specific to me. And you'll probably know yourself if you might have this sort of feeling when you're reading this book. The thing that I did really, so on about the halfway point, I was thinking maybe this is a 3-star book, And a lot of that was because the plot was quite thin, and the majority of the book had been characterization. So the plot was quite thin, and the world building was a little thin in the first half, which is interesting because you often find with fantasy books that the first third, I mean, it's almost debatable as whether this is fantasy. It is fantasy. It's a wuxia inspired fantasy. It's kind of wuxia martial arts movie inspired. The thing that I would often say is that the I'm struggling to articulate this one a little, as you can probably tell. I did finish the book a couple of days ago, so it's not as fresh as I would normally like it to be when I finish books. So, and also I keep getting message notifications coming through on my phone as one of my group chats is having a conversation, and I'm seeing them pop through as I'm recording the video, so that's always fun. I probably should edit that chat out, but I'm not going to, because I want to get this video out on time, and I'm very busy this afternoon. Anyway, so yeah, I was feeling like there wasn't enough world building and there wasn't enough plot for me almost in the first half of the book. Whereas the first third of fantasy novels is often very, very heavy on world building, very heavy on plot, and the characters are kind of weaved in as the book goes, and then it becomes more character focused in kind of that middle section. Whereas Never Die basically maintains a really strong character focus throughout. So you get point of views from many of the characters. You get to spend a lot of time in the head of Shihao, the Emerald Wind, which I really, really liked his character. It's really difficult to pick a favourite character in this book. If I had watched this as like a film, I think that I would have a different favourite character than reading and listening to the audiobook, because with the book, obviously you get the direct POV of certain characters, and I think that really sold Shihao, the Emerald Wind, to me. His flawed character is so strong and so interesting, and especially as the book goes on, and he kind of becomes more self-aware, or maybe he was always self-aware throughout the book, but he starts to reveal more of it to the other characters of how he feels about himself, and he starts to talk about it more directly in his POVs. Excellent character. Iron Gut Chen is hilarious. His superpower is that his skin is basically unbreakable. And then you have there's a few other characters I don't want to spoil. But they're all genuinely really interesting, and I really like them. So, should you read Never Die by Rob J. Hayes? Yes, absolutely. It's fun. It's funny. The action scenes are excellent. Okay, I've got to go. I'm going to pause this, and I will come back to it later. Hello, so I'm back. I rewatched the end of that video, and what I previously recorded. So this is all the same video for you, but for me it's two. I rewatched the end of that, and I feel like I had mostly made all the points that I wanted to make. So I'll give you the score, which is that this ended up as a 4-star read for me. So that was a pretty much clean sweep, great book month. You may notice that I don't rate many books 5 stars. The majority of my reading is going to be a 4-star, because honestly, if it starts to dip too far into the 3 category, I don't really want to talk too much about it, or I don't want to. I'll probably DNF it. So yes, all my books are 4-star. I don't use the entire rating sphere because I don't read books that aren't good enough to be 3 or 4-star. Anyway, so the this particular book I would recommend to people who like those old school martial arts movies. So if you like things like, I say old school, if you like wuxia style movies like Hero or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or you enjoyed even the Marvel movie Shang-Chi, which takes a lot of its inspiration from wuxia and martial arts movies, and also if you like that kind of band of rogues coming together style stuff that you get from things like Suicide Squad, Rogue One, Guardians of the Galaxy. This is very this has got a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy vibes in there. There's less of a found family with the characters of Never Die, but there is definitely that kind of we're all in it together. We're thrown together when they wouldn't normally be friends, and the relationships they build over the book, and the respect that they build, genuinely really fun and interesting. So yeah, if you are a fan of those kinds of things, in terms of books, I would say if you're a fan of that kind of actiony, superhero-y style fantasy that you get from Brandon Sanderson, then this is worth giving it a look. It has some darker themes, but it's not grimdark at all. I think it's very normal, like very regular fantasy. It's not one of those like dark for the sake of dark that you see for a lot of stuff. Tonally, it's actually quite light and fun in many places. Obviously, all the characters are dead, so there is that aspect. But it's not as big of it's a big part in the story, but it's not as negative for them as it may seem, if that makes sense. So yeah, the thing that I would say is this is on Kindle Unlimited, but I would highly recommend the audiobook. It's so fun and so funny, and the final action sequences are incredible, proper Sanderlanche stuff. Like everything builds towards this giant confrontation with the Emperor, the unkillable Emperor, which is really cool. And there's some nice twists and reveals along the way. So yeah, I'd really recommend this one. I think everyone should give that a shot, especially like I said, because it's on Kindle Unlimited. Although use an Audible credit on it or buy the audio, but the audiobook's actually not very expensive. But buy it, it's great. Rob J. Hayes deserves your money. This is the last review that for a book that I finished in Self-Pub September. Coming up soon, there will be the Voice of War review. Once I've finished that, I'm I think about 20% of the way through that. I don't know if anyone's interested in this. I could do a full discussion of Starfield. I don't think people are interested, really. People aren't coming to me for games. I don't know if I want games people to come to this channel for, which is about books. So maybe that'll just be a short. I'll talk a little bit about it, or an unlisted video or something fun like that. Or I'll just tack it on to the end of a weekly update that nobody watches anyway. Don't worry, I don't care that no one watches the weekly updates. They're for me. They're practice to be a better and better and better booktuber. So, yeah, coming up tomorrow, there will be a non-specific book-related piece of content. So that could be... I haven't decided yet because I'm going to film it pretty soon. But it could be... oh, actually, I need to do my TBR video. So probably will be a TBR video. And I will speak to you guys in that one when I see you tomorrow. Bye.